Hello guys, welcome to Code. And today you're with me, Bulio Kininda, software engineer with a little over 7 years experience. And today I'll be taking you through the ultimate Spring developer series from beginner all the way to advanced on how you can develop enterprise grade, world class Spring web applications. So without wasting any of your time, let's get cracking. The agenda for this series includes Spring Framework, Spring Core, Spring Boot, Spring Cloud, Spring MVC, Spring Data JPA, Spring Security, as well as Spring Integration. By the end of the series, you will understand how to use all of these modules to create an enterprise-grade web-based application, and you'll be able to deploy that into an environment such as your AWS EC2. So let's get to it. For the prerequisites in this particular series, you're looking at Java fundamentals, object-oriented programming principles, your inheritance, your polymorphism, abstraction, and things like that, and also basic web application understanding on how web applications behave, or if you've used like a HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and things like that. Basic database understanding. This will be querying a database, creating a table, adding columns, inserting data into the database, retrieving data from a select, and finally some version control understanding like your Git or similar version control. Now that we've installed our IntelliJ and Java, we are ready to build our first Spring web-based project. So when I create our Hello World, click on New Project, and over here, this is the configuration for our project build and what we need the project to be. So if you look at the left side, there are different project types that you can create, like your Java, Kotlin, Groovy, or an empty project if you want. Maven archetype if you want to add it as a dependency or library. And then our Spring Boot project, which is what we'll be building. And for the Spring project, I'll show you how to use this IDE configuration as well as using the web browser to configure your project. So for now, let's just build it with the IDE. So on the name, we are going to have our Spring Hello World, let's call it that. Then our location will be our working directory. Create Git repository. We're not going to tick this for now. I'll show you on the next episode how we can push our project into GitHub, and then it can be version controlled via that. Language is Java, and the question for this particular episode is, what is the fundamental difference between Gradle and Maven? So if you can comment down below your answer so that we can see how ready are you for the Spring development life. So we're gonna use Maven, so our project build will be Maven, and then the group is going to be com.zipcode, and the artifact will be Spring Hello World. Then our package will be group and artifact concatenation, so you can see that com.zipcode Spring Hello World, just like that. And on the JDK, because I've already shared with you guys that Java 25 is already available, and I always advocate for latest stable long-time support versions. So what I will do here on my Java, I'm going to select 25, and then on the JDK, because I'm not seeing a 25 compatible here, I need to upgrade into a Java 25 compatible JVM. So I'm going to download JDK just like that. Then over here, you can see it already suggests a version 25, Oracle Open JDK 25. And you can see on my JVMs, Java Virtual Machines, Open JDK 25. Then I will select that. And then my packaging will be jar. That should be fine. I have no issues with that. Then I'm going to click next. And then on this screen, you will see the Spring Boot version that we want to use. and I always recommend the latest stable. So if you see we have 3.5.7, which is the stable version, it won't have like any suffix over here, but all the other ones are actually snapshots. Release cycle 1, I'm not sure what this release cycle 1 really means. They might be like testing this or something. And then there's also snapshots. So the snapshots are predominantly like test releases just to make sure that everything holds, and there's still like test features. So the latest table will basically be this one. And then we have development tools. Developer tools are essentially just the dependencies that you would need to make your code writes much efficient, much easier. So like Lombok, you can see that Java annotation library, which helps to reduce boilerplate code. So this is, let's say you have a Pojo and you want to add some access modifiers on your Pojo. Lombok offers faster write of this particular code by using annotations. So that is basically what that means. And then I'm going to add Spring DevTools. DevTools is a fast application restart. So if I write code and I'm in test mode, the code is already running, but I want to make some changes, I can make the changes, save them, and the application will just restart upon saving without me manually having to restart it. So we're going to add these two at this particular point, and I'm going to close these. And you will see me using these two quite heavily going forward. And then we're going to add one dependency, which is Spring Web, right? Because we want to create a Hello World Spring Web application, we're going to use Spring Web, and you'll see this dependency is a web. It includes RESTful application using Spring MVC, uses Apache Tomcat as the default embedded container. So this is the application server that it uses, which is Tomcat. And we can see that we build web applications, which includes RESTful services. So we're going to add only these three dependencies. So if you can see here, added dependencies, Lombok, DevTools, and Spring Web. That's about it for now. Let's create our project. So we're going to jump into create. And then we wait for it to load and see what that looks like. Right, so our project is coming up and it's loading everything. Let me just make this bigger. All right, so you can see our project is coming through, and there's a couple of plugins that we added here, Jakarta EE, Persistent JPA. So these are just on the IDE level. So you see now it wants me to load the Maven build script, load Maven project, so that it picks it up as a Spring Maven based project. I'm just going to make this a bit smaller and then a bit smaller as well. So this is just a help.md. It essentially documents what this project is about, the sources and references relating to this particular project setup and build. We don't really need to worry about it. You can update this documentation for your particular project in terms of what it does, or you can just change this file to like a readme.md, and then you add all the details pertaining to your project and how it works or how it builds. So in this particular folder here in the project structure, there's a file called pom.xml. And if you open this file, it essentially holds all the build configurations for our project. And this is an XML format, so it is quite straightforward to read. You will see that we have a tag here, which is project, and then this is the parent tag, and everything inside this particular tag is essentially the project config, right? So we have the parent, which is the build template that we want to use for this particular project, which is our Spring Boot starter parent, and we're using version 3.5.7. It is still indexing. Once it's done indexing everything, and you can see also here it's downloading OpenJDK 25, which might take a while. So once it's done with everything, all these things should be in white, just like everything else inside this yellow text. So the group ID, zip code, as I've shown you in the configuration, the artifact, the Spring, and the version is 0.01 snapshot, Spring hello world, and the description as well as highlighted over there. Then let's go down into like the dependencies. So these will definitely be the point that we touch in most cases, because we'll be adding dependencies that we need for our project to work, or libraries that we need for our project to work, or remove dependencies that we no longer need. So as we've added in the previous configuration screen, you can see that Spring Web is there, DevTools is there, Lombok is there as well, and the Spring Boot starter test. This is just for unit tests if we want to run some tests on our code. Hence, we have the Spring starter test as set up by default. It will be added there. And then the build plugins, we are depending on these Lombok plugins, as you can see here. And also we have our Spring Maven plugin for Lombok, which this plugin, you can see it has excludes, and it excludes the Project Lombok artifact like so. So we have these two plugins and nothing heavy over there. We can see much more when we add more dependencies into our project on which other plugins we might need. So let's just go to our project. So we're gonna open source, we're gonna open main, and this is Java where our code sits. And in here, there's only one class, which is the main class. And you can see Spring Boot application annotation over there. And this annotation is what configures and lets Spring know, or lets Maven know that this is the start of our application. We need to build from this particular class. Everything else that follows here is then kicked off from the main class, or the application is kicked off from the main class. Let me see, why is it not? Why is it not? Cannot resolve symbol. Let me just click on add Maven dependency. It should be there. I don't know why it's taking forever. Okay, let's cancel that. So what I'm gonna do is just do a refresh, reload all Maven projects. Let's see what that does. I'm gonna run a clean over here, just to clean, so that it can pick up our Spring Framework dependency and be able to resolve all of those issues. Okay, so it's resolving dependencies. It's looking good, right? So you can see it resolved the dependencies by just downloading all of them. So I just ran a clean and it was able to pick everything up. Now I'm gonna close this. Our project is set up, so on your machine you wouldn't need to like reload these dependencies. It should basically download them on create of the project, so it shouldn't be a problem. But if you have a similar issue, then you can just come on the reload project, and then to pick up all the dependencies, and you should be fine like that. Right, and then our application is here. We can run this application as is. So I'm just gonna click on run. I'm not gonna touch any of this code, and then we're gonna see what the application does when it is running. So let's look at that. It's trying to build. So you can see here it's trying to build. Let's wait for it to finish. Right. Now it's logging all the outputs, starting up, starting up, starting up. Right, so the application is started. So if you look at the logs, you can see that starting our Spring Hello World application, there's no active profile set. We will look into the profiles in detail further down the series. DevTools property set to default, additional web-related logging considerations, Tomcat initializing port 8080. So this is the embedded application server. So you can see we just created the application. We didn't configure any application server. We didn't install anything else in the machine. We're just running the application from our IDE, and it's already picking up an application server, and it's running on port 8080. So if I go to my browser now and I say localhost 8080 and I click enter, you see that I have a white label error, and this error is an org Spring Framework Web Servlet resource not found exception. So this means we are able to hit the application, but there is no resource, which means there is no API that it can point to or send this request to, and hence, therefore, it fails with that particular error. So we will come back here in just a few. So let's go and fix this quickly. So now going back into our application, we know that it started and it's in port 8080. Everything is looking good. So now we're gonna go, first things first, I will change this, all the main class I rename into application, just like so. And I will rename everything, or just select all, click OK. So my main class will always be going to be application.java, and that's how I want it to be. I'm not going to create any fancy other thing. I'm just going to create a Hello World API, and let's see how that looks like. So I'm just going to go to new Java class, and it is going to be a class, and you can see over here you have different class types. You have an interface, record, enum, annotation, exception. So you can create all of these types based on your requirement. So for now, we are going to create a home controller for our hello world, or let's just call it hello controller. Yes. So this controller is going to be our API class. Let me show you how. So we have our hello, and our hello is going to have an annotation at rest controller, and we are auto completing. So you can see as I type, my auto completion is coming through. So I'm going to say at rest controller, and I'm going to add another annotation of request mapping. All right. And in the request mapping, I can just call this, let's say API, maybe v1, for example. And in my API v1, then what I will do is use another annotation at get mapping, just like that. And I will make this private. And let's do string. Let's say this returns a string of hello, and you can see the code completer is already completing what I want to write, or it anticipates what I want to write. So I'm going to click tab so that it completes, and it sets my cursor exactly where it needs to be after I click tab. Then I click enter, and you can see it auto completes again, and I click tab, and it says return hello world, and that's about it. So this will be our get API exposed over a request mapping of API v1. So if I remove this just for now, so that I can show you how we can resolve the issue in our web browser. So I remove that and I save the application. I don't need to restart the application because I already have DevTools set up for a live reload. So let's go back into our browser. Let's refresh this page. And we still have that issue. I might have to, oh, okay, my reload is only finishing now. Okay, so now I can just go back there without touching anything, refresh, and now we get our hello world coming up right there. So now it means this request is able to find a resource that is correctly mapped to this particular API request. So obviously there's nothing here. We just wrote localhost 8080 and that's about it. But now we are getting a request because a response with hello world because our API controller now has a mapping of that get and it returns this particular hello world. So there is a resource that is available to that address. So now I'm going to add back the API /v1, save this. Let's see if our dev tool is going to pick up. It does take a while. I'm not sure why it's taking forever to do that, but essentially it should be quick enough to reload faster than what it's doing now, which is weird. So let me let me stop this and let me restart it again. And once it's done here, we're then gonna check our browser to see how that looks like. So our application started, we go to our browser, just refresh this request, and now we get our exception again. No resource found exception. So now it means the resource is no longer available at this particular address that we're trying to hit. So what we need is /API /v1, and I click enter, and now we're able to get our hello world coming back because we are pointing to the appropriate resource or the correct resource. So we can go back into that and we get the 404 not found. So these HTTP errors we are going to look into. Another question, what other HTTP errors are possible when calling APIs? Share those in the comments section down below. Let's see how you know your HTTP requests and responses or exceptions that you can get. So let's go back to our application. Now we have our first API in Spring Boot, and we see how we can also version our APIs going forward. So this is the first application in Spring Boot. So just to show you as a bonus how we can set up the same application using the browser. So in the browser, what you want to go to is start.spring.io, and you will get to the Spring Initializer, which is the same configuration as we had over our IntelliJ IDE. And you can see here the project type, we can choose the Gradle or the Maven, and also the language, you can choose Java, Kotlin, or Groovy. The Spring Boot version, it always chooses the latest stable version, so that's what you need to use. Project metadata, we can just add our com.zip code, which is what we want, and the artifact name, Spring Hello World, just like that. Let's say init, just so it is quite different. And the packaging will be jar. Configuration properties, we can now select, this is quite new, properties or YAML. I like the YAML one, so I'll choose the YAML. And this will be just the application properties, just to show you the application properties. If you come to the resources here, and you will see there's a file called application properties. And in the application properties, we have the application name. This is the configuration properties. And in the YAML format, you will see it follows a YAML structure. So I will download this and you will see how that project looks like over here. So this is Hello World init, and we have our Java. I'm going to choose 25, which is the latest available for us. And I'm going to add the same dependencies on this. So I'm going to have Lombok, which is what I want. And I'm going to have DevTools. And I'm going to have Spring Web, just like so. And as you type, all the dependencies that you are looking for will come up. If it's not available here, but you still need it, you can just go to Maven website and just get that dependency and add it manually in your POM file that I showed you earlier. So now that we have this, we can generate the file, which is going to be a zip file, and we'll just extract this project and import it in our IntelliJ. I'll show you just now. Or we can also, using this menu here, to share a link. So we can be able to share our configuration link so that if you want someone else to set up the same project, they can basically just take this link, and as soon as they run this link on their browser, so let me copy that, go over here, paste that, enter, and it's going to set up the whole configuration that we have. So the configuration has been loaded. They can then download and set it up. I use this for most tutorials. I add the link of the Initializr so that you have the same project setup and you can plug it on your side and use it. So similarly with this configuration, I'll attach it in the description down below so that you have a config of the Hello World setup. Now let's jump into IntelliJ. I'm going to stop this project and I'm going to my files. I'm going to take this to zip code. And what I'm going to do here, let's go and I'm going to unzip this file, open with archive utility. So you'll see that this is Hello World init. So I'm going to go to my IntelliJ and open project. I'm going to go to Zipcode Studios, and in here I'm looking for my Spring init, Spring Hello World init. That is the one. So let me just see if I can make this. Okay, so but yeah, we can see it here. Let's open this file. Let me open it in this window. Yes. So we can open it in a new window if that's what you want, but we'll open it over here. And it's the same project setup. You'll see that it's resolving my Maven dependencies. And we have the same project structure. Our pom.xml, help MD is also there. And we have our source files over here, and our main, and our Java. We have our Hello World init. And as I mentioned previously, rename the main Java file to be application.java, just like so. That's how I prefer it. Select all, okay. And that will be our main class. Then in the resources, now look at this application file. It's application.yaml instead of application.properties, because we are now able to select the YAML configuration properties files, and you see the structure is following a YAML type of a setup, which is what I like and what I prefer. It makes the configuration file smaller and easy to read on what falls on which level. That's what I like about YAML. So we have our application name on the properties, and we have our main class. Without touching anything here, I can just run it the same way that we ran the other one, and you can basically see that the build is trying to run over here. Now it's coming up. Let me just remove that. Now it's coming up. And again, it will have a Tomcat server by default. That's what's embedded. So we have Tomcat starter 8080. Let's go back to our browser, go to our localhost 8080, enter that. We still get the same issue. And similarly, we will just need to expose a resource at that particular address. So let me just say new Java, and I'm going to call this hello controller, just like we did. And I will add the two annotations, REST controller. I don't need to add the request mapping if there's nothing for me to add as an address. So because I don't want to add anything there, I'll just leave it out, and I'll remove this unused import. What I will do, I'll just add a get mapping here, and let's do our public string hello, just like that. And what I will do here is return hello world, just like that. Save this, and the DevTools will also reload the application, so I don't need to manually restart it. But my machine is taking forever to reload this thing. I don't know why, but I can just click on this restart and stop and rerun. So it will then rerun the application and we have a look at our browser. Right, so the application started and we can go to our browser, refresh, and we have a hello world coming up. So if you want to make sure that this is the one, from init, save this, and let's just wait for the reload and see if it's going to come through. Let me just restart it so that it doesn't waste our time. So you'll see that this is from init, and once we reload, we will see hello world from init. So this is the configuration from our init project, and let's go to our browser as soon as this is done. Right, so that is done. Refresh, and you can see hello world from init. I hope with all of these detailed Hello World application, how to set up your Spring project and how to use the initializer from your browser and the configuration from the IDE is helpful on how you can set up your first Spring application. And until next episode, for now, please do like and subscribe, share if you can. Thanks. Cheers.